Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to Talent Culture's T-Chat Radio. The World of Work is live now on the radio with Megan M. Biro and Kevin W. Grossman, because middle initials count.
Come down, turn the radio on. Take my hand, turn the radio on. Come on, my favorite song, baby. Let's dance, turn the radio on.
Welcome, everybody out there in Talent Culture T-Chat Show land. It is Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, but we're no fools out there in T-Chat land. This is Kevin W. Grossman with you as always, and, of course, a lovely and talented Megan M. Biro. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Kevin. Shout-outs,
How are you?
everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm good. I'm here in Viva
Excellent.
Las Vegas today, the Aria, and having just a grand old time here at the Saba at Work conference. So I'm learning all sorts of new terminologies and all that fun stuff. And I just want to say I'm really excited for today's show, and very honored that Talent Culture is a sponsor of PAW Workforce. And we have somebody here live with us today from that very conference. So shout outs to all of my other friends at the other conference. We're all conference hopping today, and it's all good.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, and the PAW, which stands for Predictive Analytics World, and with a focus on the workforce conference, which we are a sponsor of, as well as them sponsoring us, which is really nice. And we're going to talk to our guests. One thing our guest just pointed out, which was a fabulous idea and something that we don't really do when we do our shows, and even mentioned that this is, yes, it's a live streaming show right now that we do every week, but it also turns into a magical podcast that you can download via iTunes and Stitcher. Just look for Talent Culture T-Chat, and you can stream that on demand whenever you want to listen to the show and consume it like a regular podcast. And just something that we've never have told you all out there. So thank you, Jen.
it took us 5 years, everybody. It took us 5 years to tell you that you can stream this podcast live.
Well, we tell you on the post, we tell you on the site, but we don't tell you on the show. But anyway, hey, it's a live show now. So let's do this. Let me thank our friends and sponsors and quickly introduce the topic, and then Megan, you can introduce Ben, and we'll get this party started. And also introduce our other guest who, and explain that situation, is actually going to be tweeting with us in just a minute. So first and foremost, thank you to Dice, TalentWise, Hootsuite, IBM, CareerBuilder, PeopleFluent, JobVite, and of course what we just mentioned, the Predictive Analytics World for Workforce, the PA Conference, and our social analytics partner, speaking of analytics, HR Marketer Insight. And we also want to give a quick shout out to the Candidate Experience Awards. Megan and I both are volunteers on the council for that. I was just at one of their workshops yesterday afternoon that they've launched this year, which was very exciting. And anyway, so shout out to them. So let me quickly introduce the topic. Last week we talked about the realities of the ideal HR vendor relationship, and with the cement mixers for the first 10 minutes. But none of that this time. And this week we're going to talk about the predictive power HR can bring. And Jen is bulging at the seams right now to share all of her wealth of insight that she's gleaned already in the past 2 days alone at this conference. So, but in a global market where recruiters spend, and again, we talked about this yesterday when I was at this candy workshop, they spend about, less than 6 seconds reviewing a resume. This whole gut thing just is not very accurate, right? It's less accurate than even a coin flip. So enter predictive analytics today, which of course is the ability to take what happened in the past and find common relationships and factors to model and predict the future, right? So, and right now, already for many, many years now, finance, sales, and marketing have already been using predictive analytics, and now it's HR's turn, and there's a lot of progressive organizations. I know many of my customers at PeopleFluent, Jen's going to talk about them as well, that are really embracing predictive analytics finally, but we're still really early on in the front end. If you're listening tonight, which we hope you are, participate in the Twitter chat right after the show, which is going to be 7:30 Eastern. And but you can tweet along with us now while we live stream. And again, this is a magical podcast after. So with that, let's introduce our guest. There we go.
Excellent. So our guest is Jen Phillips Kirkwood. She's at Jen Phillips K on Twitter. And I just want to say Jen has been a member of the talent culture community before it was cool to be a member, all right? When I say member, I mean that in kind of the loosest term possible, because as everybody knows, we're the organic community that kind of just sprung up out of nowhere 4 or 5 years ago now. And Jen has really been one of our most passionate people for many years, and so excited to have her. She is a 20-year veteran serving the HR and IT community as a consultant. She currently serves as an analytics and innovation ambassador to assist clients nationwide at ADP, which, as everybody knows, is a pretty large market out there. Jen's also the founder of Reach4Innovation.com. It's a private social networking e-consultancy. And, I also want to give a shout-out to Chad W. Harness. And I know he snuck his middle initial in there, so thank you, Chad. He's at Chad Harness with 2 S's on Twitter. Chad is actually at a conference right now, so I just got some breaking news over the airwaves that he's going to be joining us on the Twitter party. So, hey, Chad, and I want to just share a little bit about Chad's background. He's a lead human capital analytics consultant at Five Third Bank and the evangelist for leveraging quantitative talent throughout the organization. He led the creation of 530's quantitative leadership program, which develops leaders who are comfortable coding predictive models. Talk about cool. They're as comfortable doing that as they are presenting their findings in the C-suite. So shout-outs to Chad and Jen. Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. So thrilled to be here, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Kathy Herndon from Kimball for getting me connected with you all 5 years ago. I mean, this has just been a great vehicle for HR, IT, and business leaders to really connect and network and mentor each other more. So always love the opportunity that you provide in that, and welcoming new members tonight as well that are listening in.
Yes.
Thanks, Jen.
Welcome.
And as everybody out there knows, we're actually making the switcheroo on Wednesday, April 22nd to Teach Out's going to be happening at 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And wherever you are in the world, I'm certain that it's going to make it a lot easier to come and hang out with us on Twitter and listen to the podcast and just participate in our communities. Don't forget we've got, a LinkedIn group and a G+ community. I also want to give a really special shout-out right now to our new community manager and strategist. Today is her very first day with us at Talent Culture, and her name is Rachel Miller. So let's give her some shout-outs. She's super awesome and brings us a lot of passion and skills. So excited to, have a lot of new beginnings here at the Talent Culture community. So let's move on, huh? Let's get this party started.
Let's do it. So why don't we have Jen, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit more about your background, and particularly how it's led to what we're talking about today, and give us a little context on it, and then and share a little bit about the context from the past 2 days as well, and then we'll dive into the other questions.
All right. So that's a mouthful as everyone pours their wine on their East Coast.
Yep.
Better do it now.
There you go.
Time change is going to impact that.
Right.
I've been at ADP a while, and I've always been in the consulting role working with clients and prospects across the country and been very fortunate to learn so many wonderful things from colleagues and peers. But then I had an HR and a wonderful leader by the name of Carly Jessup who offered me a stretch opportunity to work for Rich Wilson in the analytics team. And there's a tremendous amount of momentum and energy going on in the market with what ADP is doing in our innovation labs, with being a solely focused global HCM provider. But the best-kept secret is about to explode with the analytics team, with what Rich Wilson and Mark Rind are doing. So I've had the good fortune to work with them and really representing the client voice and helping them fold more clients in to the mix to ensure that what they're driving to has the end in sight with the client directly, which is very different than ADP has done in the past. So I've got to be a part of that. And kudos to business leaders that give people opportunities for stretch assignments to expand it. So with that, I had some people suggest to me to go to this thing called Predictive Analytics World. I've been to a lot of trade shows, a lot of conferences, and this one is Predictive Analytics World Workforce, and got to connect with somebody, a CEO of Talent Analytics, Greta Roberts, and she said, you really need to lean in, listen to what's going on here. If you had told me that data scientists, quantitative data scientists, astrophysicists, and HR would all be in the same room, I would really have thought you were on something going, come on. It's bringing all these business leaders together in a very non-tech way, thankfully for me, because I can't speak in depth on algorithms and stats and quantitative analysis.
No.
Not like
no,
Chad
I never would have imagined that, Jen. Come on.
Right. So, but they're bringing everyone together to find, how do we better charter the course in HR with predictive analytics, and what does that power look like, and how do we make it real?
And I can say that, Greta is a friend and colleague of mine. She's also in Cambridge, Mass. And, again, very honored to be a sponsor for that event. And, Greta has really been a leader in terms of the space that's very niche and about to explode called talent analytics. So, it's all about kind of bringing it down a notch or two and making that accessible to everybody. You don't have to be a scientist to understand the value of what's happening in our world around us when we talk about social profiles and, your data on something like, say, an ADP paycheck, perhaps, right?
Correct. And you look at, things that are like the core demographic data, what can paying every household, 1 out of 6 households, paying that really yield to me in terms of benchmarking in HR later on down the road? How can I see the neuroscience aspects from things that have been compiling from just a paycheck? And the people element of it is absolutely fascinating with the insight and then what HR can do. But, when I work with HR, the biggest piece that seems to hold people back is, how do I trust the data? What's it going to do for me? What should I do with it? And this power distance of sometimes intimidation. And what I really love is not just the humility of the great group here. I will certainly be going again because I have learned so much from great leaders. One of the leaders was Walmart. Not everybody is Walmart, though. Walmart has a data science team, a research team.
Right.
They have 2.2 million global employees, but not everybody's Walmart.
No, but and so let's. Right, and what I wanted to ask about that is so Jen, that said, most of the good folks that we all know in HR and recruiting, the professionals, we're not data scientists. They're not data scientists, right? And I know we're talking a lot about the kinds of things what is a good blueprint for HR leaders today to better understand their workforce data first and foremost, right? How do we get to that single source of data truth? What do they need to know? Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. So, very simplistically, I love that KISS rule. Let's look at the problem that you're trying to solve. And if you're even aligning to the C-suite's goals or the CHRO goals and knowing I want to be a talent magnet, I want to drive a better customer experience as the end game in a retail business, or I want to drive better patient satisfaction in a healthcare business, what's the end game? And then back into that, how do I support that in HR? How do I charter that course? Chad really steps through a beautiful presentation from the quantitative side of saying, then what are the KPIs or the key performance indicators that I need to support it? And make no mistake, there is definitely data science expertise that's needed, but in making sure that you can paint that picture on what if. What if the story was, I have termination today. There's a data point. Well, what do I do with that? What is my time to fill? There's a metric. But what if I could tell you what my high performer flight risk was going to be? Now you have an analytic that's going to yield you real action. And, I take a step back, and I love being able to share with clients because they provide such great insights. And when I look at someone like Kathy Borges, who works at Vantiv, and she's a very esteemed project manager, and she said, predictive analytics, a lot of companies want to get there. They have to get there. That's what's going to give HR a voice. It's going to help your cost reduction, your retention, and really drive that talent strategy. And you think about the maturity model, though, that you need in that mindset, that you're going from the static reporting, the static Excel dumps that you'll still have, And you're maturing it to then the metrics and driving the KPIs, and
Right.
then driving the analytics that are going to yield you real actions. And with that, then, you've got change management that you need to understand. And this conference has been really good. David Turetsky at ADP did a discussion today about what does the change management need to look like on the analytics and predictive analytics and benchmarking. How do you teach managers what to do with this information? And Chad even has shared a couple stories that maybe he'll share in the tweet chat later of you can deliver news to HR stakeholders and to business partners. Not always is it good news. So change is tough sometimes, and when you see the results, sometimes there's a lot of tire kicking that goes on, and people saying, I'm not sure I trust the data. And you continue to model it and continue to evaluate it and back it in. But then it comes down to, are you willing to change? Are you willing to make adjustments, and not just one time, but perpetually throughout the life course as you use this?
Let's bring it down a notch for a moment, Jen. I mean, there's some confusion in the marketplace still, though. When we talk about learning, we talk about trust, and you're a very experienced salesperson, obviously, Jen. Okay, you got the goods, so to speak, from a talent perspective. I know that you're dealing with a variety of customers at ADP, obviously. Can you break it down for our audience today what the key differences are from your perspective between data, metrics, and analytics? How do those kind of break down in your world?
That's such a great question because it really speaks to how you start. So data is an example of, I have a termination report. It shows me my voluntary and my involuntary turnover. It's showing me a rear view window. Here's what happened in the past. Okay? So now let's think of it in metrics. And SHRM, as well as IRM, have done some really nice jobs with defining with HR professionals what key performance indicators, what KPIs, what metrics should I be using? So now we're looking at a metric such as, what is my average time to fill for a quality engineer? What is my time to fill for a customer service representative, such as in a retailer? And that would be an example of a metric. Then taking the data and morphing it to an elevated level to provide additional business insight on still a rear view looking picture. It happened in the past. And now predictive in terms of, and with the analytics is looking at what can I do and make recommendations from. So what if I'm expanding into a new market and I need to provide the CEO guidance on which market is going to provide us quicker ramp-up time with our talent pools, what our average wages should be in order to be competitive at an industry level so that I can guide the C-suite on which markets we should look at quicker or which markets contract from. Okay, so analytics with benchmarking to give you that insight. Now you look at a predictive piece, high performance and a flight risk. What is my attrition rates, or who is a good high potential of a performer to hire? I love talent analytics on what they do with their algorithms and their data science, because it's not even about who's a flight risk. It's before I hire somebody, before I take on the new hire costs, the onboarding costs, and I wait and see if they're going to be a good hire. It's pre-assessments before hire to say who's going to make a good hire. And Kevin, obviously your company does a lot of different things with predictive hires, I believe, or different recruiting standpoints to give them insight.
Yeah, we're definitely playing in that field. I mean, we've had a really good workforce analytics tool for a few years now that we've baked into the entire talent management platform, and are doing a lot more work pushing the envelope, kind of helping to bring the market up as ADP is and other players as well up to snuff when it comes to predictive analytics, right? Because the rest of the world is still battling or embroiled with spreadsheets and and unclean data and disparate databases. I mean, you've heard it all. So that's why I want, if you could share maybe from what you gleaned from Chad as well as your own experience, Jen, how do we get there again? I mean, I know we're touching on it in a roundabout way, but how do we, the change management aspect that you just talked about a few minutes ago, what is Chad doing in his organization to kind of to get the company to embrace that more on the predictive analytics side?
I love one of the Chad. one of the T-Chat users just chimed in on the stream. Liz Park-Coop just said, too many HR teams haven't even started to look at their demographics. You need to look at that and learn how to normalize and what your baseline is. And I think she's hitting right on the mark is you have to start with the data. And every renowned speaker here today, from AOL to Walmart to Talent Analytics to other organizations, including ADP, have said you need to start with the data. And starting with the data and starting with a joint table with your quantitative analysis people, your data analysts, and HR at the table saying, what KPIs, what analytics can I derive from my data sources? And having a single source of truth for that data makes it far more plausible and easier. And the other piece that we heard from many speakers is that once you get your own data and you cleanse it, and that's not exactly a sexy-sounding term. It is what it is, you know?
Yeah, like,
you got to cleanse that data. You have to normalize it. If you think of
critical.
Standardize it. You have to do a lot to cleanse that, and that's not easy. And every organization here has spoken about how they did that they went through it, and it was an exhausting effort. Then you have to look at what other...
Jen, I've got to interrupt for a moment.
Sure.
Let's not forget, yes, it begins with data, but it really begins with people and culture. It really begins with leaders saying, hey, we're going to make this a part of our initiative for the next 5 to 10 years, whatever that is, right? I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I still think, I'm on the Twitter stream right now. We've got a pretty active community that's like, where do you start? It's just fascinating to me how much change is happening in this industry right now. Just interjecting there, It's all about data and analytics, but it's all about adoption and culture and leadership too. And I don't want everybody to lose sight of that. You have to have buy-in from leaders to actually make this happen, right?
And boy, every single leader here smiled when they said, and that's not easy. And it's interesting to have a room of data scientists say, you need to network. You need to go to coffee with the HR business partners. You need to understand that HR business partners are your key to this type of acceleration. And HR business partners need to realize that analytics and predictive analytics will not only make them more competitive, it also keeps them a little bit at parity in a lot of areas. It seems like every company I'm running into has a flight risk. So that's pretty much the given. It's how am I going to differentiate and get deeper? And when Chad and I were speaking about this, we both said, boy, for HR and the data science to come to the table, it's hit the gas. You are hitting the gas on the accelerator, but it's not a one-time effort.
I love it.
I mean, it was great. And talking to him, and I'm like, hey, the other side of the table is actually friendly. They want to.
There you go.
There's better ways to do it. There's better ways to partner, but the conversations have to start. They have to know, and every data scientist here said you have to know where HR is going, what their charter is, and what they're after, and understand them to understand how to build the KPIs, how to give them data that's relevant.
Change is hard work, right? So
it's
all
not
about
a one-time
aligning.
effort.
No, it's
ongoing.
Steps.
Yeah,
And
I wanted to throw out something real quick. What I thought was just a great analogy because yesterday the head of HR for RMS, Risk Management Solutions, was speaking at this candidate workshop that I was at, and she was talking more about the internal hiring process and how to make it better. And they're a 4-time winner of Candies, but the analogy that she used is like anytime you do anything like this, any change management initiative, whether it's this or whether it's trying to move a company into cleaning their data, and people we call it creating liquid data so you can move it amongst all your systems and in the same format, right? She talked about you got to be all in on any of these initiatives. You don't ever get half pregnant, right? Either you're all the way pregnant or you're not. And that was her analogy, which I thought was brilliant. But it's true here too, though, right?
Absolutely. And you've got some more voices in your community right now that are weighing in, such as Audrey Saccone with Human Perspective saying, predictive comes through making analytics, the new prescriptive model. And a really good piece of the Predictive Analytics World Conference here is they spend a lot of time focusing on how to make the predictive prescriptive for the business, and the change management and the philosophy that comes. Every stakeholder here, though, has spoken that what made it a success for them was having that joint partnership and that C-suite or executive sponsorship with the HR and the operations or center of excellences in order to have that collaboration.
Indeed. Absolutely. Megan, you there?
I'm here. I'm running out of here. I've got a practice session happening here at Saba at work. I'm moving out here to the Masters to everybody. I'm here.
Can I comment on one of your users? Ron McIntyre just weighed in on the stream, and he said one piece that was actually an unknown today for the conference. It says, how many years have we been looking at employee engagement figures and we still haven't found a way to act on them? Too long.
There you go. Right.
So well said. And that was actually teaching the data scientists that we still have to find a way to measure engagement, whether it's, with looking at Black Book HR, different vendors out there, or just sometimes it's bringing the data together for that insight. We're working on it with a couple clients right now. We're taking engagement data, and it's usually an executive saying, well, we do engagement because we have to do, employee surveys, et cetera, but what do we do with it? Well, now if you can tie that back to the business to say, how is my turnover impacting my engagement? How does that impact now my customer scores or my patient surveys? And drive that down, I think we're on to making engagement measurable. And that's really where HR needs to get to as well, and having this voice.
Well, and all it takes is a percentage point or two. I mean, I joked recently, the latest Gallup study shows that we finally have increased employee engagement across the board, like, a whopping 1.5%. But you know what? It may not be a very big number, but with the kinds of, the driving churn down, for example, turnover down, even a 1.5% increase in your own company's employee engagement can save $100,000 a year in hiring costs and retention costs. And so I think that was one of the things that, we're down to less than 3 minutes, but we're not talking about really huge numbers either, right, Jen? Once you understand your data, you've got some really good KPIs in place, and you're starting to look at predictive. It's a matter of helping to move the dial incrementally, right?
Right. And, there's a study that Talent Analytics actually did. They've talked about here. It's about 1,000 sales associates of a retailer. They had about 60, just high of 60% attrition. Their costs were about $3,300 a year, a sales associate per year, which yielded about 670 replacements per year. And that estimated calculated out to about $3,300 to replace somebody, or $2.2 million.
Ouch. Right.
And
here
so those are some easy, quick hits that we can take advantage of for a hard dollar cost while we work on some of the soft dollars and some of the other models that impact things like the customer experience, patients, engagement.
Well, listen, we're running down on time. Again, Talent Culture is a proud sponsor at the Predictive Analytics World for Workforce Conference in San Francisco. Certainly a big reason why we're doing this special T-Chat show today. What can attendees in 30 seconds or less expect to learn at the conference as we move on?
And what happened?
Real life, non-technical terms, and real life, how do I do this? How do I start? And what could it do for me in the yield?
Boil that ocean, right? Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Jen, and shout out to Chad. We're gonna check him out on the Twitters, and thank you to our community out there for making all this possible to keep all this learning and online fun and relationship building happening. You guys rock. Thanks.
Yeah, and remember, everybody, this is also a podcast too. It's a magical podcast that you can stream from iTunes or Stitcher or Blog Talk Radio. Thank you, Jen. I'm serious. Are you there? Are you gone?
Thank you.
Are you there?
Yes. No, thank you. I love the podcast. When I miss them because of the East Coast time, I can't wait for the time change. I go running to them. So it's
There you go. Well, listen, Jen, thank you so much again. And Megan just dropped that we're out in about 30 seconds, but let's jump on the Twitter chat and keep this party going, all right? Thank you, Jen.